参加我们在杭州的活。
Welcome to our event in Hangzhou. This is our very first time hosting an event in Hangzhou. We have 70 participants, 27 men and 43 women. For most of them, this is their first time attending a blind date event. Thank you all for your trust. To be honest, organizing an event in Hangzhou is much more challenging than in Beijing or Shanghai, mainly because the city has too many internet influencers. Over the past 2 days, most of the people we interviewed were influencers, and rejecting anyone leads to backlash. So yes, we've received quite a bit of criticism during these 2 days. Today, we have 43 women attending. But to select them, we interviewed at least 500 people, both offline and via video, over the past month. These women are the final selection from a massive pool of candidates. All the women here today come from proper families, hold serious academic degrees, and have stable jobs. As we've mentioned before, the men paid 6,000 yen to participate, while the women joined for free. However, we want to make it clear that not all men who apply are accepted. Every participant goes through a pre-screening process before being approved. We value quality over quantity. Also, to ensure safety and sincerity, every woman attending today has undergone a full medical checkup before being admitted to the event. As a commercial matchmaking company, to show our sincerity, we also have a refund policy. If after listening to all the introductions you find that you're not interested in anyone, and don't even add a single contact on WeChat, you're welcome to request a full refund. No questions asked. We believe that's a fair and honest approach. To sum it up, the women at our 50 million level event may not necessarily be the most beautiful you've ever seen, but they are among the best in terms of overall quality, and definitely the most marriage-ready. We sincerely hope that everyone here walks away with something meaningful. During the introductions, there will be a lot of people, so you might not remember every detail. Try taking quick notes on your phone, like the person's name and basic appearance, as they speak. If you end up adding 3 or 4 people on WeChat, that's already a sign the event went quite well and the quality was solid. Just to emphasize, many of today's female participants are graduates from top universities like Peking University and Tsinghua. This kind of lineup is even harder to find in Hangzhou than in Beijing or Shanghai. Even if your own conditions are great, you might never encounter these women in your daily life. Our event is very simple. Each person introduces themselves, and then everyone is free to add contacts and talk as they wish.
Not long ago, I decided to follow the advice of a close friend. He had gone on more than 20 blind dates before meeting the woman he's now happily married to. They've been together for 5 years and live a simple, stable life, the kind of relationship everyone says they want, but few are actually willing to build. At first, I'll admit, I thought it was all a bit much. I had that common belief, if you're meant to meet someone, it'll happen naturally. But after going through a series of frustrating relationships and failed attempts that always ended the same way, I started to question that mindset. The issue wasn't just finding someone, it was finding someone who was on the same emotional and personal level. Someone with clear goals, maturity, and who wouldn't feel insecure about the fact that I'm financially stable, opinionated, and fully aware of what I want. I had already tried normal setups, dates arranged by friends, family, even apps. And most of the time, I met men who were emotionally unprepared, insecure, or clearly expecting a woman who would just nod and agree with everything. More than once, when I talked about my work or my plans, the conversation died. They'd change the subject, or worse, make jokes. And the worst part is, when you're a woman who knows what she wants, society calls you too demanding. But when a man has standards, they call it good taste. That's when I made a decision. If I'm going to try again, it's going to be through high-end blind date events. So far, I've been to 3. And no, I haven't met someone who ticks all the boxes yet. But at least in these events, I can be honest about what I'm looking for without being judged. I can look a man in the eyes and say, I want someone with strong values, emotional maturity, someone who takes care of himself, who's ambitious, educated, and preferably over 6 feet tall. It might sound like a lot to some people, but for me, it's just reasonable. I'm ready to give a lot in a relationship, so yes, I expect reciprocity. But even in these high-end events, things aren't always smooth. There's one very real problem that no one talks about. The competition among women is intense. Most of the women there are stunning, well-dressed, successful, educated, confident, charming, and often more emotionally grounded than the men. And usually, there are fewer men than women. In my last 2 events, I spent half the time sitting alone, literally just waiting for someone to become available to talk. It's not that no one was interested, there just weren't enough men. It's a weird feeling. You spend time getting ready, choosing the outfit, walking in confident, and then realize the basic math doesn't add up. There are 40 women and 25 men. The numbers never work in your favor. Even so, I still believe it's so much better than the regular dating scene. Because at least here, the men who do show up are different. They come from good families, are well-educated, respectful, and usually have something to say. They're not just looking for someone to fill a gap, they're actually looking for a partner. In traditional setups, I often met men who just wanted a woman who would accept anything, as long as she didn't challenge them. So yes, I've chosen to step into a space with more competition, more selectivity, and more pressure. But you know why? Because if I'm going to be rejected, let it be by someone who actually has the right to reject me. Someone who also has something to offer, someone with purpose, with clarity, with a life I'd actually want to be a part of. There are days when I leave these events exhausted. There are days when I feel frustrated and tempted to just shut down my emotions and give up. But then I remember the kinds of things I used to tolerate in the past, and what it cost me emotionally. Today, I'd rather wait. I'd rather go to the 4th, 5th, 6th high-end event, even with all the difficulties, than settle for another mediocre relationship where I have to dim my light just to be accepted. If there's one thing these events have taught me, it's that being a woman with standards is not a flaw. It's just clarity. And honestly, there's nothing more powerful than knowing exactly what you want, and having the courage to wait for it, even when the world keeps telling you to accept less.
I came here because I participated in a so-called high-end blind date event and ended up being cyberbullied as the main character of the drama. Before this, whenever I posted videos, my comment section was always full of compliments. But this time, for the first time in my life, I was hit with thousands of harsh, overwhelming insults all at once, like a tidal wave. Many people are curious about what it feels like to be attacked online. Were you angry? Some even ask, did you reflect on it? Will you dare to do it again? Well, here's my honest response while it's all still fresh. I can actually understand every single person who insulted me. Because behind all those insults there's anger. I can clearly see the anger people feel toward these so-called high-end events. The pain from past relationship failures. The frustration of competing with others, especially other women. And the general resentment toward women. But this time I wasn't just a bystander. I was the one being criticized. I'm that girl some people said they'd seen at other matchmaking events before. In my video I said I joined the event because I was lonely, and that's true. I really am lonely. I work from home most of the time and rarely meet new people. One time a friend saw me zoning out on the street and asked, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Soaking up the crowd's energy. It feels lively here, almost like home." Sometimes I think, if only there were someone who could watch movies with me regularly. Someone who could share quiet moments, that alone would feel healing and joyful. Yes, I want to fall in love. But not with just anyone. I want someone with good values, someone thoughtful. I want to fall for a man I truly admire. I want someone who will be there for me long term. This is a deeply personal and somewhat vulnerable thing to say. But I don't think showing vulnerability is shameful. And I don't want to live in a world where loneliness becomes a punchline. I get why people are angry about this high-end term. It does sound pretentious and annoying. But let me be real with you. Even the people organizing or attending these events don't like that label. This whole idea of ranking people is awful, and it shouldn't exist. Last year on my alternate account I wrote something. You don't study hard to become superior to others, you study so you can understand that no one should be superior to anyone. But the term high-end gets attention. It generates clicks. That's the sad truth. Also, most of these events require real name registration and marital status verification. At the very least, I know the man sitting across from me is truly single, and likely serious about finding a relationship. And to be fair, many of the women at these events are just as successful and financially independent as the men. One woman I clearly remember was a strong career woman earning over $1,000,000 yuan a year. She was actually the first person I added on WeChat after the event. From the outside, it looks like everyone attending is proud, either professionally accomplished or young and beautiful. But when we actually sit down to talk, even the wealthiest people don't think they're anything special. Many of them went through painful business journeys, which ended up ruining their previous families. Now they're just looking for a second chance at love. Everyone is lonely. Everyone wants to be happy. Everyone is struggling in their own way. So, going back to the question, how did I feel being cyberbullied? Honestly, not that sad. I went to sleep, letting the judgment roll off me. I know that all those harsh words were just emotional outbursts. I refused to link their anger to my self-worth. Some said, the women who attend these events are just gold diggers. But anyone who knows me knows I've always told other women, being a gold digger is the lowest and most misguided way to live. Don't follow that path. Go experience what real intimacy is. Pursue genuine happiness. I've posted tons of content saying exactly that. And now that it's out in the open that I want to find someone, I might as well be upfront about it. I'm going to post a matchmaking ad for myself. I hope you're over 180 centimeters with solid values. But most importantly, you need to know how to build a healthy relationship. That means emotional intelligence, nonviolent communication, kindness toward people, and life in general. If you meet those qualities and want to share some details about yourself, feel free to message me. I'll continue participating in these events. In fact, after all of this, I've decided to become a matchmaking organizer myself in Chengdu and Shanghai. And guess what? A lot of high-quality single people have already reached out to me, helping others find love, easing their loneliness. From the bottom of my heart, I believe that's something truly beautiful. Goodbye, everyone.
大家都知道哈，现在
I recently went to a high-end blind date event. Everything looked promising, pre-screened profiles, elegant venue, and supposedly only top-tier men. Well, here's what actually happened. I met 4 guys. The first was an engineer with a master's degree and a family that owns multiple properties. Great, right? But if we ever argue, what am I supposed to do? Go house to house trying to find him? No thanks. The second studied in Europe. Sounds impressive, until he started struggling to hold a basic conversation in Chinese. There was zero chemistry and a lot of attitude. The third worked for a major state-owned company. He earns about $500,000 a year and made sure I knew it. Only talked about himself. Apparently, he thinks his salary alone is enough to impress. It's not. The fourth was a civil servant in court. Seemed normal at first, until he started talking about modern women working too much, and joked that if we ever divorced I wouldn't get a penny. Romantic, right? So yeah, this was the elite I was introduced to. And honestly, these events can be risky. One wrong move and you land in front of a rich man with a huge ego and zero emotional depth. I still think high-end events are better than regular ones. At least the men are polite and come from decent families. But now I know, a good resume doesn't mean good character. If this is the cream of the crop, I'm scared of the milk.
男生千万不要再去相亲了，因为
Ordinary men, stop going to blind date events. Because once you attend one, you'll truly understand what it feels like to be rejected by women you never thought would have the nerve to reject you. If you get turned down by a stunning woman, a real head-turner, fine, you can accept that. But once you step into this matchmaking scene, you'll realize even the 4 out of 10 types, short girls acting like they're hot stuff, look down on you like they're royalty. That's when it hits you. And that's when it gets frustrating. At these events, you'll see the pattern. Women barely write anything about themselves in their profiles, maybe 1 or 2 vague lines. I like to travel. I enjoy getting my nails done. I do yoga. No mention of income. No mention of owning a home or a car. But when it comes to what they want in a man, it's a whole list. He must own a home, a car, and earn at least 10,000 yen to 20,000 yen per month in cities like Guangzhou. Oh, and she's 33 years old. That's why I say, stop wasting your time on this system. This story was told to me by a friend. He studied at a top 985 university in Beijing, has a PhD, and now works in Chengdu. He once met a woman through a matchmaking group. She was very average, no house, no car, no savings, and around 1.50 m tall. Still, she told him she liked his background and wanted to chat, maybe go on a date. Truth is, he wasn't really interested. So he kept it friendly, more like just chatting. He asked her, "Do you guys usually bring you gifts on first dates?" And she said, "Yes. One guy once gave me over 1,000 yuan just for a first meeting." That's when it all became clear. Even a totally average woman can walk through the matchmaking market like she's some celebrity. And the lower down the social ladder you go, the worse it gets. Because there are more men than women. So a Kinder Egg type of girl walking down the street, 1.50 m tall, can still attract a swarm of desperate single men. She's overpriced in this market. That's why women in these events act so naturally arrogant. In evolutionary psychology, they're the gene filters. They choose, they reject. Older women especially tend to think this way. If I can't get a top 0.5% man, rich, tall, charming, then I'd rather stay single forever. The classic mindset, I won't settle. Meanwhile, the average guy just wants someone. He's not even picky. And the result? We get an army of desperate men drooling over fours, as if they were goddesses. Which ends up giving these women a completely false sense of superiority. Because they're being treated like rare treasures when they're not. So here's the honest advice. If you're going to be treated poorly, ignored, or rejected anyway, then at least save up and go to a high-end matchmaking event. At least that way, you'll be rejected by women who actually can reject you. Women who are genuinely beautiful, successful, and have something going for them. At least that rejection would make sense.
说姐妹们，我这两天去
Let me tell you, girls. I recently went on a few blind dates and met 2 absolutely ridiculous guys. You won't believe the nonsense I had to deal with. The first guy was a music teacher. Not gonna lie, he was good-looking, tall, from Shantou. We went out for dinner yesterday and the conversation wasn't bad. But after we got home, he barely messaged me. Almost total silence on WeChat. Then this morning, he sends me a text. After a sleepless night of thinking, I've decided we're not compatible. I can't accept your profession. That industry is too messy. When I read that, I was furious. I thought, really? And you think teaching is some pure, untouchable profession? Aren't there tons of scandals out there involving professors harassing students? Why judge an entire industry with such a narrow, prejudiced mindset? I'm a flight attendant. I earn my money honestly with hard work. My job is completely respectable, what's there to be ashamed of? But he still had the nerve to look down on me. He later tried to explain himself, but I didn't even bother. I deleted him right away. The funniest part? We only went out once. One dinner. And he already thought I was super into him. He seriously overestimated himself. And to make it worse, he told me he doesn't like people from northeastern China, especially the men. He said they get drunk and talk nonsense, and they don't deserve to be his friends. And women from there? According to him, they're too open, too forward. He even said he and his bros joke about them all the time. He told me a story about a northeastern girl who liked him, and by day 4 they had slept together. Then he told her they weren't compatible and blocked her right after. Seriously, I was speechless. His mindset was beyond toxic. Full of stereotypes, arrogance, and entitlement. Then came the second guy. This one was from Hong Kong. Yesterday he invited me out for dinner and said he'd come pick me up from my apartment. I thanked him and assumed naturally that he was coming by car. So I got ready, did my makeup, sprayed some perfume, and wore 7 centimeters heels. When I met him outside, he was walking from the parking lot. I thought he was going to get the car. Nope. He just kept walking and led me to the bus stop. I asked, "Wait, didn't you drive here?" And he said, "No. We're taking the bus to Mong Kok. I live in Tunmun, so it's far." I said, "I'm wearing heels. I can't walk long distances or stand on buses like this." If he had just told me, I could have worn flats. Even after I said that, he didn't offer to call a taxi or book a ride. Nothing. So I said, "Let me go upstairs and change my shoes." I walked all the way back home, changed, and while I was doing that, I thought, you know what? Forget it. I messaged him saying I wasn't feeling well and canceled the date. So as someone who's been through this, let me give some advice. If you're under 32, there's no need to rush into blind dates, matchmaking services, or online platforms. You can still meet great people naturally at work in daily life. And if you're over 32, don't panic either. Because the blind date world? It's full of weird, egotistical, judgmental men. You don't need to settle for that. And the most important advice: respect yourself. Don't rush into anything physical. Being too quick to sleep with someone doesn't make them value you more, it often does the opposite. It lowers your perceived worth in their eyes, even if it's unfair. So please, girls, have self-respect, self-love, and independence. Only then will you attract the right kind of man. And yes, I'm hard to please. And honestly, that's exactly how it should be.
In the end, these so-called high-end blind dates turned out to be exactly what we expected. A stage where everyone pretends to be something they're not and then leaves disappointed because the fantasy didn't end in marriage. On one side, you've got women over 30 hoping to find a CEO who's handsome, loyal, emotionally available, totally accepting of their past, and still picks up the check. On the other, you've got men dropping over $1,000 just to sit in a room full of women who barely hide their disinterest. Bravo to everyone involved. Women complain, there weren't enough men at the event. No, there weren't enough men who checked every fantasy box they invented. And the guys? They leave with crushed egos and still say, thanks for the experience. It's basically Tinder with nicer clothes and a snack table. Same frustrations, fancier packaging. And in the end, no one picks each other because everyone's chasing something that doesn't exist. A perfect partner who never makes mistakes, never asks for anything, and never causes problems. But hey, if you still believe you'll find true love at one of these events, good luck. Just don't cry when you leave broke, bruised, and just as single as when you walked in. If you liked the video, hit that like button, subscribe for more brutally honest content, and tell me in the comments, are these events a solution or just expensive illusions?